Hi Jedi, welcome to Module 1. In this section, we will talk about cryptos as an alternative and also, in our opinion, as an improvement to some of the problems of the current financial system. Then we'll look at why money in the bank is not as safe as you think, and then at the problems with inflation. Now, let's dive in. So why cryptos and why now? You're here because you are curious about cryptos, and we think it's a good idea to be curious about cryptos now. We'll explain a little bit why for context. In the world of today, basically we have central banks and governments that have a local currency, and that's what you use. And cryptos, it's an alternative to that, and also has some improvements based on this.
Absolutely.
So an alternative, that's how it started with Bitcoin. We had problems with financial systems back in 2008 with debt, and Bitcoin was an alternative to those more centralized systems and the problems of that, and we can talk about it more. But also cryptos bring a lot of improvements from this. So decentralization, more transparency, more access for people.
More scalability, the technology is better, faster.
A lot of automation,
cheaper.
removing the middleman.
Sure. It's a big improvement for sure.
And just looking at the numbers, cryptocurrencies has been the best performing asset in the past decade.
That's a big statement, but that's true. If you were to invest a few $1,000s 10 years ago in the S&P 500 or stocks or in cryptocurrency, wow, we'll put a graph, maybe we will put a chart as we speak to illustrate the point, because it's pretty shocking.
So we still right now, it is still early enough to be part of what we think is maybe the biggest transition of wealth
in
that
history.
has been happening
For
in
sure,
history.
it is. Yeah.
So a little bit about the problems maybe with the current system, and focus on two. The first one is that money in the bank is not safe.
Yeah, and that's a big statement, but what we try to say here is that most of us, we entrust the banks and we fail to realize one key thing. So the inflation that's going on every year means that if you have $10,000 in the bank, it's worth less and less and less every year. So the bank will give us interests. In Europe, it's about 0.1% per annum. And the inflation is like 3%, 7%. It doesn't matter how you calculate it. Basically, you are losing money if your money is just sleeping in the bank. With crypto, at least you have the opportunity to see your money grow. And that's a very important point.
Yeah, so there's actually two things, which is one, inflation. So we'll put a chart of the M1 money supply, and you'll see that since the beginning of the pandemic, there's been a huge printing of money. So inflation is going through the roof.
Yes, and as we print $5 trillion in 1 year, what this means is our buying power as a person is going down the drain. We don't learn this at school, but that's why you're here today.
So that's one thing, inflation, you're losing purchasing power. And the other thing is that your money in the bank is not safe in the way that we've seen it in the past with previous crises, because banks actually loan a lot of the money, a lot more than they actually have. When you want to get your money, it's not always there. It happened in the past, it happens in other countries. And so even though crypto is definitely an investment with its own risk, like any investment, having money in the bank, you can't be sure that you can withdraw it at some point.
At some point, we will see one of the major banks default. And what this means is they cannot actually pay all the money that people want at the same time. The whole cards pyramid will collapse, and we will be left like we have in the past, where we think these institutions are so reliable, but they have points of failures. And as we are approaching a global crisis, I think we can all feel into it. Printing so much money, pandemic that's gonna to last how many years? Who knows? People are not able to work and produce, value into the economy. All of this is kind of heading towards a major reset. And this is why we think with Alex that instead of being scared and terrified, we can prepare ourselves the best that we know to have more choices instead of just watching the house setting on fire.
And again, we're not financial advisors. We don't have a crystal ball, but we think it's wise to put some of your wealth, if you have in the bank system, in other assets, and including, for sure, cryptos.
And we'll be talking about this. So this concludes this first section, and may the markets be with you.